Also, just a reminder for those that are interested in having contact information and a copy of the PowerPoint, towards the end of, after the webinar, I will actually have a printout of all the attendees, and then with your contact information, and I will send out a copy of the PowerPoint from the presenters. And also, this webinar will be recorded, and I can also provide a webinar recording link for you and your staff as well. And so, to begin, before I begin, I just want to go ahead and kind of briefly introduce our presenters today. It will go in this order. We have Megan Webster from World Council of Credit Unions, who will be giving a CureUp overview. And then we have Miriam De Dios from Compera Consulting. And she will be presenting on the business case for credit unions and Hispanic outreach. And then we have Michael Adams and Linda Gibbs from Greater Iowa Credit Union, who will be speaking on building the foundation within the credit union. And then we have Chris Lundquist from the Family Credit Union, who will be speaking on tailored marketing and education for Hispanic members. And then last, we have Debbie Whitty from Village Credit Union, who will be addressing Hispanic outreach strategies and results. And then once everyone presents, we will move on to our Q&A session. So here at World Council of Credit Unions, we have a program that is called the International Remittance Network Program, which is also known as IRNET. And what we do is we strive to assist credit unions in reaching emerging markets such as the Hispanic population and providing credit unions with safe and affordable money transfer products. WOCCU developed IRNET in 2001 in response to credit union members and potential members' demand for money transfer services to counter the highly excessive fees that are being charged to use these services. WOCCU has two operations. We have a domestic and an international operation. We believe that at WOCCU, offering access to remittance services, credit unions around the world are able to serve unbanked and underserved populations, providing access to additional financial products and services, which may ultimately help them improve their lives. And just some statistics. In 2009, approximately there were $420 billion in remittances that were sent worldwide. 1 in every 10 people around the globe is directly involved with remittances. On our domestic side, we have about 83 U.S. credit unions that are sending remittances. And on our international side, we have 8 countries that are receiving. And so far, since we've launched with our IRNET program in 2001, we have paid out more than $3.3 billion in remittances. Briefly, just our domestic operation, we have partnered with Vigo, and most currently we just aligned with RIA Financial Services with our 83 credit unions in our network. So right now the current credit unions that are on our system only offer Vigo, but now they will have a chance of also offering RIA as well. And then Saul will actually now be introducing RIA.
Thank you, Ami. My name is Saul Wolf. I'm the Remittances Manager here at WOCCU, and I'm just going to be focusing a little bit on what I look for in terms of a remittance partner, in terms of a third-party firm, and why we've selected Vigo and why we've selected RIA. The first, I think, main point or main points that we look for when we're evaluating different remittance firms are what's the cost for their service or services, what type of service in terms of the quality of service do they provide, and what type of coverage do they have. Coverage meaning their network size, the number of countries, there's a number of different factors. In the case of QROP, the program that we're here to discuss today, we got a lot of feedback from the Iowa credit unions, and one of the things that we learned from QROP was that we needed to offer not just one service. At first, WOCCU historically has started with Vigo in a number of different countries, including the U.S. On the international side, we've diversified and we work with a number of different remittance firms, but in the U.S. we focus exclusively on Vigo. And one of the lessons we've learned from QROP is that we need to offer alternatives. So today, I'd just like to give you a brief overview of RIA and VIA. RIA and VIA is the third largest remittance firm in the world after Western Union and MoneyGram. Vigo is now considered actually a part of Western Union because it's a subsidiary, even though the brand remains separate. In terms of cost, I think it's important to know that if you're sending money home to rural Mexico, for example, you aren't looking for the absolute lowest cost. You're looking for convenience too. You're looking for reliability. There's a number of different factors that come into play. And in summary, what we refer to as cost, service, and coverage. Another factor that we look at is the money needs to be there when people expect it to be there. So if a husband is sending a wife $300 for daily needs, food, rent, something else, they depend on that money. And remittances are, by and large, used for daily consumption needs. So reliability, that service, those are important factors when we're evaluating different remittance firms and different options. In the case of RIA, they have 14,000 points of service in Mexico alone. They have over 2,000 locations in Mexico that are open 7 days a week. They have 4,500 non-bank locations. A non-bank location in the remittance industry can include credit unions, it can include chain stores, it can include a variety of different locations. Currently, we work with RIA and VIA outside of the U.S. in Guatemala, Kenya, Bolivia, and Ecuador. And I think probably most important about RIA and VIA, aside from the things that I've mentioned before, is that they are able to send money to 85 countries, and in most cases, that money is available within 30 minutes. Also, I should say that in most cases, they're one of the price leaders, meaning they offer consistently one of the lowest prices. And when I mean prices, I don't just mean the fee, but also the exchange rate differential, which is important when you're considering a remittance. So those are the reasons we wanted to offer another remittance provider. We're still really pretty happy with Vigo, and Vigo offers a lot of the same advantages and opportunities, but we wanted to take this opportunity to introduce RIA and VIA as well. And now I'll turn it back over to Ami.
And then now we have Megan Webster, who will address the QROP overview.
Hi everyone, my name is Megan Webster. I'm a research assistant here at WOCCU. I've been working with credit unions for about 4 years now, and I had the great opportunity to work with the credit unions in Iowa and Coopera to implement the credit union remittance outreach program. So if I want to click this, how do I go forward? Okay, there we go. Technical difficulties. So to give you an overview of QROP, WOCCU received funding through the United States Agency for International Development as part of our Cooperative Development Program. The CDP, as we call it for short here, is a learning grant, so it really focuses on documenting lessons learned and really talking through some of the issues that the credit unions may have. This program was built off of the partnership that the Iowa Credit Union League has with the Panama Credit Union League, which is through WOCCU's partnership program. It pairs state credit union leagues with international credit union leagues to do an information exchange. And then as an added bonus, Coopera, which is a subsidiary of the Iowa Credit Union League, was on the ground to provide technical assistance to the credit unions as they are an emerging market firm. One question that I got a lot during this program was, why Iowa? And I think it's a valid question. Iowa, at the time in 2007 when we started this program, presented a great opportunity. It had a recent growth in Hispanic population. There was enabling legislation, meaning that Iowa credit unions at that point had just gotten the legislation that let them have open bond credit unions as opposed to closed bond credit unions. And really, we didn't have any earnet credit unions in Iowa, and it was really an untapped market. So there was a lot of opportunity to really isolate what worked and what didn't work in that market. So the program goals, so basically the goal was to use remittances as a way to reach out to the Hispanic community. We found that it was really incredibly important to tailor an outreach program to each credit union. As you'll see in the presentations from all the credit unions, they all had their own unique challenges and strengths, and Coopera worked with the credit unions in the areas of marketing, community outreach, financial education, and operational and personnel training in order to devise an outreach plan specific to not only their credit union, but specific to their Hispanic field of membership. And I guess the one caveat here is there are many ways to reach out to the Hispanic community, and this is just one method. But we were able to use remittances as a gateway to reaching out to the Hispanic community. And as you'll see, the credit unions have taken this initiative and expanded it and they're now introducing new products and services to better serve their Hispanic population. And so program results. Here are some of the highlights of the program. We had 2 of the 3 credit unions having a higher volume of remittance transactions than the average credit union offering Vigo remittances. We had all of the credit unions saw an increase in Hispanic membership, increase in the growth of Hispanic membership. Greater Iowa, who will be presenting later, they changed their membership criteria, changed their CIP, so it would become easier for Hispanic members to join the credit union. Family Credit Union, they saw a positive return on investment from cross-sales, really pushing other products to remittance senders. And then, like I said before, all of the credit unions have developed, repackaged, introduced new products and services to better serve their Hispanic members. And some of these include ITIN lending, quinceañera loans, online financial education, IDA accounts, and low-limit credit cards, among others. This webinar is structured around a research monograph that we put together based on the lessons learned from this program. It contains obviously a lot more information than we can present here, but it has sample business plans and different tracking tools that you can use to monitor your results as you move forward in reaching out to the Hispanic community. And this is available for free. You just have to go to WOCCU's website, which is www.woccu.org, and go to the publications section and then to research monographs, and it will be the one on top. And lastly, if I can, WOCCU does offer a Spanish immersion program. A couple of the credit unions that were participating in the Cure Up sent staff down to this program. It's a great opportunity for business development staff or Hispanic outreach staff. It does include living with a pre-screened host family. You have 4 hours of Spanish lessons in the morning, and then you work in a local credit union, so you really get that total immersion experience. And that is all for me, and I will pass it on to Miriam.
DeDios. Hello everyone, I'm Miriam DeDios. I'm the Emerging Markets Director for Copa Consulting. And I wanted to spend the next couple of minutes talking to you a little bit about the business case for credit unions and Hispanic outreach. Before I get into that, I did want to give you a little bit more background on who Copa is. Our mission at Copa is to partner with people, businesses, and communities for new economic opportunity. And our ultimate goal is to help credit unions grow by reaching the Hispanic market. We are a subsidiary of the Iowa Credit Union League, as was mentioned, and we're also a strategic partner of the Credit Union National Association. And we're located here in Des Moines, Iowa. Now, you may be wondering, well, why should credit unions really be reaching out to the Hispanic market and looking at the Hispanic market as an opportunity for growth? Well, before we get into the opportunity with the market, I did want to talk a little bit about what the industry as a whole is facing to really make the case for looking at the Hispanic market. And as you can see from this slide, there are a few issues in the industry right now, which all of you are probably familiar with. But first of all, credit unions overall, as an industry, are not growing at a rapid pace. If anything, it's pretty much stagnant growth. I believe the last time I looked at statistics, growth in terms of new members was about 1.2% a year. So definitely slow growth in terms of credit unions in general for the nation. There is obviously increased scrutiny of credit unions. You're pretty familiar with that, and how banks are continually holding credit unions under a microscope, kind of watching every move, always wanting credit unions to prove that that they should have that non-profit status. I included the chart here, which is actually from the GAO report. It's a few years old, but it did show that.
Miriam,
Yes?
Miriam, I'm sorry to interrupt, but could you move your slides? We're on the first page of your presentation.
You're on the first page.
We just see your
okay.
Yeah, we just see your first.
Oh, because I'm actually on the third one.
Yeah.
That's what's on my.
If you want, Miriam, I believe we can control it here if that's easier.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll do that, okay?
Okay. So I should be on the third slide?
1 second, please.
Oh, sorry about that, everyone. I thought you were moving along with the slides as I was moving them forward. should I change the presenter to hand it back to you?
Okay, just a second, Miriam, sorry. Sorry for the technical difficulties, everyone. 1 second, please.
All right.
You're on the second slide, Miriam?
Third one.
Okay.
Forward. There we go. All right. Well, sorry about that, everyone. As I was saying, I was talking a little bit about some of the challenges that the industry as a whole is facing. And I believe I was on the second bullet point there, which is the increased scrutiny of credit unions overall and how banks really are holding credit unions under a microscope, watching every move. As you can see in the diagram off to the bottom left, that's actually findings from a GAO report that showed that at that point, banks were actually serving more people of low income and modest means than credit unions were. And so, of course, banks use that information against credit unions. And of course, there's a lot of turmoil going on, a lot of new legislation coming about. Just the regulatory landscape has really changed for credit unions, adding to some of the problems. Another key factor is the overall aging of the population. The chart on the bottom right shows the trend in the percent of individuals that are 65 and older in the U.S. And as you can see, that the trend is increasing. Certainly, the average age of the population in general is going up. I believe the average age of a credit union member right now is about 47 years old. And so that certainly has implications about, in terms of members and the types of products and services that those members seek and what their credit union is able to provide them. In general, we're starting to see a saturation of the mainstream market, meaning that financial institutions are really starting to go after the same member, the same customer. And oftentimes, banks and credit unions really are recycling that same member and that same customer. But probably one of the biggest challenges is the explosion in the fringe financial service sector, meaning some of those alternative financial service providers like the check cashers, the payday lenders, pawn shops, all of those alternative financial services that really include products and services like check cashing, money orders, remittances, etc. A lot of products and services that credit unions may already have, or if not, could easily provide as well. So looking at that, that really puts credit unions in a dire situation. So we want to flip the slide. You want to jump to the next slide, please? Thank you. An answer to the problem really is, we feel, that the Hispanic market, for a variety of reasons. I guess to summarize all of these reasons, that the Hispanic market really is the largest, fastest growing, youngest, and most underserved market in the U.S. By the year 2050, about 1 out of 3 people in the United States will be Hispanic. Currently, the United States has one of the top 3 Hispanic populations in the world. One of the biggest factors is how underserved this market is. About 1 out of 2 Hispanics in the United States does not have a relationship with a financial institution, which really bodes well in terms of reaching an untapped market, a market that other financial institutions aren't necessarily courting right now. So a blue ocean of opportunity, if you will. This market is working. We have significant workforce participation. We're actually overrepresented in the workforce. We're highly entrepreneurial. We're starting businesses at a very fast pace, and the sales of those businesses are growing at a very fast pace as well. We're a very young population. I mentioned the average age of a credit union member is about 47. The average age of a Hispanic in the United States is about 27. So you think about the opportunity in terms of where someone is in terms of their lifestyle at 27 versus 47, and again, you see the opportunity there. Consumer power is also growing. I believe it's reached $1 trillion, and it's set to exceed that in the next few years as well. And if you think about where that money is being spent in terms of financial services right now, not a lot of it is going to credit unions, but rather going to those fringe financial service providers. So that helps hopefully give you a bit of background in terms of the business case. Now, how is it that credit unions can go about reaching and serving this market? I'm going to flip the next slide for me. What you see here is what we call the copa approach. So the diagram really shows the path a credit union takes to become the preferred financial institution of choice for Hispanics in your communities. So the road is really the same for all credit unions. What's really different is the credit union itself and the conditions on that road, if you will. The destination is the same as well. So we'll hear from the 3 credit unions in a couple of minutes here, but you'll find that all 3 of those credit unions are very distinct in terms of how management teams work, staff work, their asset sizes, locations within the state. All of that make each one of those credit unions unique, and also unique in terms of where they are with their Hispanic outreach efforts. Now, we like to look at ourselves as tour guides. So if you flip the next slide, please. As we help credit unions navigate this road, the ultimate goal is to simplify that road for you. So it's a little bit smoother here. There's still obviously some challenges to overcome, but we definitely work with you to help accomplish that and to guide you through various stages of Hispanic outreach. And that's essentially what we did with each one of these credit unions. They started at different points along this trajectory. I'd say all 3 of them were somewhere between a discovery stage and an emerging stage, but with the ultimate goal of becoming that best practice credit union, the one that is that preferred financial institution of choice for the Hispanic market in their communities. Flip the next slide for me. To be able to move across that trajectory, we kind of break down the approach into 2 basic fundamental steps, which are, of course, easy to say but very difficult to accomplish. And you'll hear the credit unions talk specifically about how they accomplished some of these steps and what the challenges were. But the first one is really building the foundation at the credit union. It's not only important to want to reach this market because of philosophical reasons, because it might be the right thing to do, but it's important for credit unions to realize that there is a need to serve this market, that it is largely underserved and could be the primary growth strategy, especially as you saw some of the challenges that the credit union overall is facing right now. So of course it's building that organizational mindset, the right organizational mindset. Once you've done that, you're kind of halfway through. The next step is really adapting to the market instead of forcing the market to adapt to you. And that's looking at key areas of the business of the credit union a little bit differently. It's looking at your personnel strategies, which include training, which include recruitment and retention strategies, differently than you have before. It's adapting your products and services, which of course remittances falls in line there. And it could be adopting or actually acquiring a completely new product or adapting some of your existing products to meet the needs of the market. It's also looking at processes differently. We'll hear about Greater Iowa and how they had to evaluate their customer identification program and adapt it to serving foreign nationals and immigrant populations. So it's looking at some of those internal procedures, processes, and systems. And then lastly, promotion and marketing. Obviously, there's a lot of promotion and marketing done with the remittance pilot program, but it's important to have those foundational items before you're ready to promote your services in the community. Next slide, please. Now what you see here is a couple of things. I mentioned those two fundamental steps. When accomplished, when you have that right mentality at the credit union and when you've adapted to the market, that essentially jumps you from that discovery stage to an emerging stage. What gets you to that best practice stage is really having the market share and having a strong financial education strategy. And the strategy really was developed after looking at various credit unions in the industry who are very successful at their Hispanic outreach efforts. We did do a lot of research and benchmarking and looked at what strategies those best practice credit unions have in place that make them successful and that help us benchmark and look at providing recommendations to new credit unions who want to reach out to the market. The little circles that you see there really represent, the small circle is a Hispanic outreach initiative at a credit union, and the larger circle is really the operations of the credit union and the culture of the credit union. So in a discovery stage, oftentimes the Hispanic outreach initiative is just an initiative. It's not necessarily an integral part of the organization or of the culture of the operations of the organization. Over time, as you move through those stages, it does become more an integral part of the organization's culture and the organization's operations, where, you know, if you were to talk to any best practice credit union who has been serving this market for a while now, they would tell you that it's not an initiative. It's a part of who the credit union is and what they do. It's not necessarily seen as a one-off thing. And so we continue to work with the three credit unions whom you'll hear more about, kind of navigate this trajectory and move through those various stages. Next slide, please. As far as our specific work with the program, Megan mentioned this a little bit, but we helped the credit unions create those business plans, which really incorporated 5 key areas. It included their program goals, a specific outreach plan, their marketing plan, financial education plan, and then an operations and training plan. So we worked with each of the credit unions to develop those unique plans, and then really we're there to help implement and provide assistance, provide recommendations, suggestions to help implement all of those tactics and provide that assistance. So if you have any questions about any of that later on, feel free to submit those questions in the Q&A session. If you want to flip to the next slide. I did want to share a few free resources out there in case your credit union is interested in Hispanic outreach. We do have a presence on LinkedIn, so great forum for you to hear from peers and to ask questions related to Hispanic outreach. We have a monthly e-newsletter where we include all sorts of tidbits of information regarding Hispanic outreach. If you're interested in an action guide similar to a white paper about building the right organizational mentality at your credit union, feel free to contact me or send an email to info@coperaconsulting.com and visit our website at any time. So I appreciate your time, and the next slide has my contact information. You can contact me at your convenience. So I think we'll turn it over to the credit unions now, and I believe Michael and Linda are next.
And just a friendly reminder, all of this information will be sent out, so if you're scrambling to jot everything down, I will send all this information out, copies of the PowerPoints, and you will have everyone's contact information. So I will, now we will move on to Greater Iowa Credit Union with Michael Adams and Linda Gibbs. 1 second, please. Okay, Greater Iowa, you are ready to go.
Okay, and I think there's an introductory slide that we can start out with in terms of the PowerPoint.
Yes,
My name is Michael Adams, and I am the Vice President of Marketing at Greater Iowa Credit Union. And I see. As soon as we get the PowerPoint up and going, there we go. So I'm actually speaking from Linda Gibbs' computer. Thus, they have Linda listed as a presenter, but she is like shaking her head. No, 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 you do it. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Greater Iowa, so we can go to the next slide, basically. I'm going to profile our credit union very quickly. We are a $250 million asset credit union. We have about 30,000 members and 8 branches. 2 of those branches are significant to us. A quarter of our branches are significant because one is located in East Des Moines, which is the urban manufacturing part of the city, and we have a large Latino population that lives in and around the east side of Des Moines. So we have an urban Latino membership. And then our second branch that is of significance is in Denison, Iowa, which is in rural Iowa. It's in what I call Steve King country out there in western Iowa. We have 1,400 members in that credit union. They are largely work at the meat packing plant, and we inherited this credit union 7 years ago. It was a meat packing plant seg credit union. It is now part of the Greater Iowa universe. There's 1,400 members in that credit union, a half of whom are Latino members. In East Des Moines, we have 1,500 members, a third of whom are Latinos. Now that is significant, particularly that last figure, because in the last year we have attracted 200 new Latino members to that East Des Moines branch. And that is significant because it basically began with remittances. You know, I was the chief grant writer for the approach to WOCCU 2.5 years ago, expressing our interest in working with the Latino community, basically because of our East Des Moines branch and our Denison branch. And we received that branch and then started to work with WOCCU and with Vigo, and have been offering remittances. Remittances are important because I think we now have a successful model for working with the Latino community. It's certainly not a best practices sort of credit union, but I think we're beginning to flirt with that emerging credit union status. But because I'm an administrator, I strongly believe in structures and strong structures. And if you are going to, build a Latino initiative at your credit union, it has to start with a solid foundation. And that, I think, began with the view of our customer identification program, and seeing that it excluded the people with foreign documentation. So, and actually, it's one of the things with this Latino initiative that I'm most proud of, and that is kind of ushering a change in the CIP policy through the leadership of the credit union, through the board committee process, and getting that changed, because that was kind of the springboard to our taking this initiative very seriously. So, for any credit union that is thinking about starting this process, I would first begin to look at that CIP and see whether that is open to people with foreign documentation, and it sends a message to folks who come into your credit union to do remittances and so forth that you want their business. Now, I'm sure there are those of you out there who have political resistance to working with the Latino community or other immigrant populations. Although I suspect that because you're listening in on this webinar that you're very serious about going forward. We had some political resistance. We had some political resistance, on the leadership level, and we had some leadership on the board level. We used to be affiliated as a SEG with Iowa State University, and our board is still largely made up of academic people. And academic folks, faculty members, administrators. They are, for those of you who are familiar with this particular group of people, can be argumentative. They're not afraid to express their opinions. They're not afraid to hold contrary opinions. And we heard every one of those opinions during board meetings. So getting board support is incredibly important. And if you are working with a board that is sort of going to resist any movement towards working with a Latino population or any other immigrant population, you've got your work ahead of you. You're going to have to you're basically going to have to turn politician. You're going to have to attend committee meetings. You're going to have side conversations. You're going to have to talk with leadership. You're going to have to push this agenda. You're going to have to invite folks like Miriam to come on a regular basis to talk to your board. You have to have cultural training of this board. Because, if you have folks that are resistant, and particularly if they're in the majority, it's going to be a hard road to hoe for getting this initiative to move forward. And we were facing that, and we did have some political resistance. Once the CIP was passed, once we received, an affirmative that we were going to participate in this grant, it helped give this initiative some affirmation, I guess, that we were serious about this. We were going to move forward. But I would start with a CIP. I would try to identify what the political resistance is in your leadership and your board, and start to work with those folks. Now, it was very helpful to us, frankly, that our president and CEO was very supportive of this. But I think that there's no one out there that would be surprised that if someone in leadership or the board is going to resist a major initiative like this, that it won't be difficult. I think we can go to the next slide. So besides the board and besides the leadership, you're going to have to get the staff to buy in. Now, in our two branches that work with the Latino population, there's no difficulty with that. We have bilingual staff. They work with Latino members every day. There's not an issue. But we have decided that we're going to make sure our whole staff is involved, and we have some 90 FTEs in our credit union among the 8 branches and administrative staff. So we have actually had cultural training. We've brought in folks like Miriam from Copa and other people to talk about what it is like to work with a Latino or immigrant population. And we've also, communicate with folks on a regular basis. And, in fact, I have on my desk now an internal communication that has taken the last 2 years of the campaign and broken it down to all the things that we're doing, and we're about ready to distribute that to the staff within a week or two. So I think, making sure that your staff is buying, you survey them, you attend staff meetings, you talk to them about what you're doing, you communicate with them on a regular basis, is all very important, as is the cultural training. It's very helpful. I think people really enjoyed getting this inside look in another culture. Once they were able to identify with the culture and, and lose their fear of a particular culture, then you were able to get that buy-in. But then I would also say that, ongoing communication is, extremely important to this whole process. I'm looking forward to, this new publication that's going out. It will explain the initiative. It will have an overview of the initiative. And we'll talk about our relationship with Copa, which has been very helpful. Miriam, provides us with everything from translation services to research to cultural awareness to product development. And, if you can work with someone like a Miriam or another consultant, I think that's very helpful. Now, folks out there may be saying, well, you sound like you're Anglo, and in fact I am, and, but I've been overseeing this initiative because I think I was the original author of the grant, so I kind of inherited it. But what we're doing, and we can go to the next slide at this point, what we're doing is we're beginning to look ahead. In the past year, we have gone from remittances. That's kind of the foundation of our program. We've introduced ITIN lending, And you know, that met with, again, that whole political resistance again, because we're working with you know, we're working with undocumented workers. But so far we have done we've had I-10 lending in place for about 6 months, and we've done about 20 I-10 loans, and we haven't had any issues whatsoever with that. We are just last night adopted a quinceañera loan, so we'll be promoting that here relatively soon. And like I said, we're introducing a new publication to the staff that provides us an overview of the Latino Initiative campaign. And this is probably the best step that we could take, and that is we're taking this beyond the marketing department, which has been sort of the chief you know, advocates for this program, and we're extending it credit union wide. Now this was you know, something you know, that we are slow to come to, but I think is essential to the program. And what we're basically doing is we're taking it beyond the marketing department into all the different departments within the credit union, and we've got what we're calling an employee implementation team that's going to take the foundation of what we have now and extend it, you know, beyond the marketing department, so that we can emerge as, you know, a best practices credit union. So we've also, you know, as I mentioned, introduced the new products and services, the I-10 lending, the quinceañera loan. We've introduced financial education programs. We had a successful one last month at our East Des Moines branch. And we just are promoting this, but I can't, I guess I can't explain, or I can't advocate strongly enough that it began with our remittance program and extended from there, you know, through the change in CIP, to the, you know, the hiring of more bilingual staff than we've had before, through the communication and through the other products and services, plus the growth that we realized. I think the one significant figure that kind of startled me was the growth in our Latino members in East Des Moines was pretty startling. You know, 200 in the last year. For us, that's pretty good. So we'll have an even expanded presence here at the credit union in terms of the Latino initiative, and we're looking forward to moving forward. And if I get a chance, I'll tell you how that quinceañera loan goes in the future. But that's it from Greater Iowa.
Okay, thank you, Michael. We will now be moving to Chris Lundquist from the Family Credit Union.
Okay, hey, this is Chris Lundquist from Davenport, Iowa. Welcome to our hot and muggy day here in Iowa. Much like what Michael was saying, we were a perfect fit for where our branches are geographically. You know, I'll give you a little overview of our credit union. We have 7 Iowa and Illinois branches. 2 of them are located within the top 3 highest Hispanic penetration counties in Iowa. So we already have the demographics in 2 of our branch areas. Similar, Iowa is a big meat processing industry, so we have meat packing, processing near a few of our locales. And we are an active employee group. The Family Credit Union does serve these as employee groups. We had the geographical fit. We had already some type of penetration going on. We just had to know what and how to learn our way, how to address this population and how to have a plan going forward. And it really began before we were immersed in the Vigo program. But combining it with Vigo, having the natural fit, and then going forward working with Copa, things are making much more sense with us. We do have a plan going on, and I'm going to tell you some things that have worked successfully with our credit union. Next slide, please. What I'm going to briefly discuss here is the education. We all know that the financial education is a smart move. Some of the products we created, and you'll see why I say quote unquote created. Some of the marketing promotions, by the way, I'm VP of marketing as well, so you know, we tend to sway to what we're good at. And I'm going to briefly, it's not me to sit here and talk about this Copa product, HON, which is the Hispanic Opportunity Navigator, but this is something we just participated in some how helpful that was and to help us lead the way into the future here at the credit union. And next slide, please. Like I said, this is not a secret. Financial education is good for all members, and it doesn't exclude the Hispanic membership. Everyone, it's a win-win for everyone. You get what you put in. One thing we did adopt is we are an early subscriber to the CUNA's El Poder es Tuyo, which is a website you can subscribe to through CUNA. We put it as a link on our website, and it's financial education awareness, and it's in Spanish. It has new articles. It has new video. It's a resource that we can go to and we can show people in their own language, in their comfort zone, and they can start learning on their own, but we can use it as a tool to direct them to it. There's 3 easy components to them, home, family, and future, and within each of those categories, I'm sure there's something your members can relate to and learn from. Another thing we've explored is hosting occasional financial awareness meetings. Not an easy thing to pull off. It is a challenge to get the people there, and what we have done is try to host them at churches and community centers where there's already a natural audience. We've done it at one of our employee groups, and through Miriam we were invited to a couple of the English as a second language class in our local community colleges. That's a perfect place. So if you already have an audience, natural audience, and you can get on some of that, it's a good. The success with those, you don't see any direct success, but you know that when people show up, you know there's an awareness, you know there's a need, and it's always good to keep your name out in front when people are seeking out that type of education. Okay, now we can go on the next slide. The component of loans and savings here, what we did was looked at our current products. There's no need to recreate the wheel. We kind of just restructured our products. We already had restructured and marketed as Hispanic specific products. What we already have is a credit builder type of loan. CD secured loan is one that we can do and market it at the Hispanics, but yes, anyone could walk in and get a CD secured loan. And also a low limit credit cards, which was at one time before July 1st, we marketed it as our youth credit card program. It has a lower, you get a lower credit limit. It's to build credit and to build financial responsibility, and yes, anybody that walked in the credit union could get it. But we are marketing it specifically to Hispanics where they start feeling comfortable in getting a credit card on their own. We've done some Hispanic-themed loans. Once again, nothing new to the credit unions. And may I add, too, that we don't market it in all our branches right now until we feel the need, we feel the confidence we feel the growth. We're only introducing those to a couple branches that are the more highly Hispanic populated. But what we simply do with our signature loan, much like Greater Iowa is doing, we market it as a consiera. We market it as a citizenship. Now, citizenship loans, when you do get a citizenship, apply for citizenship, you do need a chunk of money right away to make it final. And so two of these types of things we've marketed that appeals to this type of market. Non-interest bearing accounts, I think were already mentioned. We have got approval for that. The logistics are easy within our data processing, our system, our core system. It's just a click of a button, which will say not to add interest. We just have not implemented it yet or marketed it yet. But what the point is about all these services, these loans and savings products, they're already there. It's just a matter of how you market it and kind of repackage it. Next slide, please. Yes, we do have to have a plan, whether it's whatever department you work in a credit union, and there is a plan. We do have a marketing plan. We have a separate budget. We have a separate plan. And it's not a bad idea to revisit this plan occasionally because, as with anything, you need to tweak it. Part of this, I think Copera is going to keep getting stroked in this presentation here, but you know, we did make that an integral part because we do need the support that they've given us to help make this plan and do a monthly visit with them so we can keep that on for the full year. It is important to advertise the acceptance of the particular, and that was what, much like Michael was saying, you know, we accept foreign documentation, so that's nothing to be, that's not a presumption of membership and people in the community. You do have to market that so people are aware of that. We've had products that Copera has helped us specifically market. 3 things that we feel are important in this community was the idea, the easy things that we all take for granted of saving, credit, and loans. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. And a brief recommendations on how easy it is to save, how easy it is to apply and get credit, and really, once you're there, how easy it is to get set up on loans and to learn financial responsibility. That was something that we did get some consulting with also. We've made what we put out on our front lines is a menu of us. We've actually got one of those menu holders. We put, you know, our products and services on one side. It's the clear ones. It's like a menu. On the other side, you flip it over. It's everything in Spanish. We want it to be welcoming, and we want people to approach the teller counters to pick up that little marketing feature and look what we have and see that, oh, we can communicate in Spanish. And oh, I didn't know that's what you had now that I see it in Spanish. I do have to throw in there that trust is a very marketable idea. Once you learn and get into this, you do have to understand the culture, and you know the financials are very. The idea of the financials are very unsure in the community, in the Hispanic community. So you do have to throw out ideas that you know they can that you can trust us. We've been around for a long time. We try to speak your language. You know, give them reasons why you can establish a trust relationship. And then finally, goodies. You know, everyone likes goodies. Do they necessarily like goodies that may appeal to credit reports or something like that, if you're mentioned, I don't know, just for an idea. Maybe not. Maybe they would be more interested in hearing about the El Poder website. And so we've created some goodies with some of those relevant ideas in the credit union. When I say goodies, I mean the promotional pieces like the keychains, the handouts like we had cups and T-shirts, and make sure that you are also at the community events where you could pass those out at. Another slide, I believe. Oh, I guess that was it.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Now we will move on to Debbie Whitty from Village Credit Union.
Hello. I hope that there are some small credit unions out there, because what I'll be talking about will help you realize that it doesn't matter how small you are, you can get involved with the Hispanic market, and it can make a huge difference in your credit union. Blue Plans Credit Union was the name of our credit union prior to hearing Warren speak, Warren Morrow, the CEO of Copa. He spoke about underserved markets, and Blue Plans Credit Union was the credit union for Blue Cross and Blue Shield. And in 2000, they had asked that the credit union move off of their facility. And each year we would get less support from the sponsor. And so we knew we had to do something, but being only $6 million in assets at that time, we talked about going community, but we did not feel that we could probably compete with the larger credit unions. And we made an attempt to, we really worked hard at trying to get Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Iowa to get back on board with us. And that was like beating your head against the wall. And I went to this seminar that Warren was speaking at, like I had mentioned, and he brought up this Hispanic market and how much it is growing in the Des Moines area. Our credit union's in Des Moines. And I went back to the board and talked to them about, here's this niche, that market, that maybe we would be good at this and we could go after it. So started the process. We changed our name to Village and our field of membership to Community. And we hired Warren's firm. He was in the process of he had a firm that the Iowa Credit Union League had not partnered with yet. So that went on, and we signed up with them to help us out on this initiative. And we went through, like, oh, you can go to the next slide. Sorry. We went through a year of training on the Hispanic culture, of getting the staff and the board to understand the different needs that were there. And we kicked off the Hispanic market on Mother's Day with the remittance program. Mother's Day and Christmas are the two main remittance times. They send a lot of Hispanic people will send relatives or mothers on Mother's Day money at that time. During this year of training, first let me explain. I have 4 full-time employees and 1 part-time marketing person. And we hired 2 Hispanic people. And the reason I was able to do that was due to a turnover in staff because of a couple of robberies we had. So that sounds terrible. It kind of worked out well that I was able to go ahead and hire a full-time and a part-time Hispanic person. Then I hired a part-time Hispanic outreach person, and he worked with our, we have a Latino advisory committee, and he worked with that group of people where we meet quarterly, and we ask that committee, what's the needs of the community, and they come up with a lot of great ideas. So in reaching out to the Hispanic community, I would suggest having a Latino advisory person and a committee. Some of the things that Michael and Chris have already discussed, we did as well. The educational things, changing your customer identification policy, just getting ready to serve this community. We do have safe accounts, is what Chris was alluding to, that you can't, if there's no Social Security number or ITIN number, a person can still deposit money in your credit union. You just can't pay dividends to those people. And we do offer that. We only have, I believe, nine members that have that type of an account. I was very fortunate. This is another thing about being small, is I think the politics aren't as much of a problem because there's not as many layers to go through. So my board was always pretty right with the way we all thought, and we started out doing I-10 lending right away. So we've done I-10 lending for 2 years. We have had some charge-offs, but the charge-offs are less than what the percentage is less than what the credit union percentage is as a whole for charged-off loans. We started doing I-10 car loans right away too. So that could be a problem because the state of Iowa doesn't allow a person to have a driver's license without a Social Security number, but you can purchase a car without having a Social Security number, so we just try not to get involved in whether they have a license or not. So there was an opportunity, the very first members that we signed up came to our credit union because they were having issues with a mortgage that they were trying to purchase a home, and they weren't understanding everything that was happening. And I didn't necessarily think that they weren't being explained the right things. I just thought there was a language problem that they didn't always understand exactly what they were getting into, and things were switched up on them. So I asked the National Credit Union Foundation, we wrote a grant, and we were able to receive monies from that grant to start a Hispanic Housing Coalition. That has not gone as well as we'd hoped, although we did have several people within the real estate community that was part of it. We've had some loans that we have done. We don't book them on the credit union books. We have a third party, but so we're still working at that. And to be honest with you, I'm done, and I would just rather you. Oh, I have one more slide. I'd rather have questions so I can answer what you really want to know instead of me just jabbering along. Okay. 11.7% of our membership are now Hispanic, and 11.19% of outstanding loans are to the Hispanic population. So it has made a huge difference in our credit union. We're currently now 8 million. So prior to us going after this market, our membership was decreasing every year since 2000. In the last 2 years, it's increased. So it's been very rewarding to work with this group of people. The culture, these people are great people to work with. Trust is very important to build that with them, And like I was telling Megan when we were talking about this, we kind of hung our hat on the Hispanic population, and that we're looking at them as our means to survive and not have to merge with a bigger credit union someday. So I would love to answer any questions anyone has.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. We will address the questions in a few minutes.
Hi everyone, it's Megan Webster again. If you have any questions, please go to that little question bar on the right of your screen and type them in. We're compiling them right now, and like Debbie said, she really wants some questions, so please don't let her down. I just want to kind of wrap it up here and give a little conclusion of all of the presenters. One thing that Miriam started out with, this is a great opportunity. We all know this. This has been something that has been broadcasts from the top of the mountains in terms of really reaching out to the Hispanic community can be wonderful for your credit union. But I think the thing to consider, and that was what we were trying to do here, is kind of bring the credit union perspective, the average credit union trying to reach out to the Hispanic population from ground zero in some cases. There are things that you need to consider, and those are building the foundation within the credit union, making sure that you have your board buy-in, and the different challenges we heard from Michael. Making sure that you're building your foundation with your staff, and you have not only bilingual teller line staff, but also that it's the whole credit union is involved in this initiative. Doing your homework about the market, adapting existing products appropriately, or introducing new products and services that will meet this credit union, and marketing them appropriately. Building relationships with the community, and one thing that we talked about briefly, I believe that Chris mentioned it, but looking back at that business plan and readjusting, it was definitely throughout the 22 months of this program. It sounds like very positive now, but I know everybody who presented today will say that we definitely had some challenges through this, but in the end it was, being patient is definitely one of the things to consider with this population. And as Debbie said, and Michael and Chris, remittances is a great way to start your program, to start offering a product to this population, to bring them into the credit union, and then start doing those cross sales and adding to your product menu so you can better serve that population. So I will stop talking now, and we will move on to the question section. Should I just do? We had one question: will the PowerPoints be available from this webinar after the session? Yes, they will. Ami will be compiling all the PowerPoints. We also have a recording which will be available that will be sent out to to everybody who has attended. We have a question for Michael. Michael, I'm going to unmute you. I don't know how to do that though. Ami.
Actually, we will be unmuting all of our presenters, and so that everyone
unmuted
chance to talk. One of the questions
muted.
This question was for Michael. I think, can you elaborate or talk a little bit more about what the customer identification policy program is?
Basically, that is the policy that states what identification you will accept, to become a member of the credit union. And it was pretty much our customer identification program was pretty much standard fare. We have a primary form of identification which we will accept, and then it needed to be backed up with a secondary form of identification. So the primaries are what you might expect, a form of documentation with a picture, like a driver's license or a passport or something like that, but it would have to be a U.S. passport. In our case, it stated a U.S. passport. And then there were things that we would be willing to accept, like electrical bills and, and credit card bills. And I mean, there's a whole list of them. Iowa ID card, out-of-state driver's license, a social security card, those types of things. Local photo credit cards. But what we lacked was an acceptance of foreign documentation, like the matricular card, the cedula card, any form of foreign ID that is issued by an international country. So what we had to do was we specifically added those to our mix. And so now, let's see, our customer identification policy says one of the following is required. The ID must be valid. State-issued driver's license or state-issued ID card, current military ID or passport, government-issued national identification card containing evidence of nationality or permanent residence, or an alien identification card. So those were the primaries, and then we have a list of about 20 things. I won't list them all, but it's everything from a voter registration card to a utility bill. So we needed those things, but what we needed to do was add that government-issued national identification card. And, our bank secrecy officer got all exercised about doing this, but again, we just had to do that, that strong lobbying for this, and then make sure that it was a board agenda item, and we were eventually able to get it passed.
I'm going to add one comment. This is Miriam from Coopera. I just wanted to state that every credit union has a customer identification program. It is a mandate of the NCUA, and it's a mandate of the U.S. Patriot Act. And all financial institutions can serve foreign nationals and can accept foreign identification. So, thanks.
Okay, next question.
This question is for any of the presenters. Are you using Hispanic local businesses to help you promote your Hispanic products, and if so, how?
Anyone can answer that question.
I will. Although we haven't used those resources in a while when we were first trying to capture some of this market, I would imagine any of your communities have a partnership that does deal specifically with immigrant resources, and we did contact and partner with them as well. The only bad thing, and that's maybe not the business you were thinking of, but that's the example that came first to my head. But the negative thing about that is the banks and other credit unions have also contacted them for the same resources, so they won't necessarily recommend, our credit union over someone else, but they'll just put you in a pool of resources. We do have some small businesses that are like the Mexican restaurants in a couple of the areas, and so some of the small businesses, which are a natural fit as well. But specifically partnering, the two resources that came to mind were the community ones.
This is Dovey with Village Credit Union. We partnered with Hispanic Educational Resources, HER. They do several things, but their major thing in the community is daycare and child care for kids that are under school age. And we do quite a few things with them, and we've tried to help them out, and they've helped us out. And we have several of the teachers are members here. We also have placed an ad in the Catholic Church that has Spanish Mass, so we're in their bulletin each week. When we have something going on, we try to put flyers in Hispanic businesses. We usually try to have where they can rip off the phone number on the end, because the Hispanic people, they will read stuff and they'll take stuff and they'll do stuff. So it's kind of different from the mainstream U.S. citizen. We also help with the schools when they have conferences. Our Hispanic outreach director will go and interpret. And also there's a legal clinic that he's involved with that he'll go and interpret for the attorneys in the Hispanic community.
Okay, thank you. Next question.
Okay, so this is a long one. This one is for Michael. From your experience, what is the most effective form of advertising, other than word of mouth, that draws potential members to your branch to do remittances? We have found it difficult to persuade established users to consider switching from their current service provider to our credit union for remittances. Have you tried radio, print, etc.?
Yes, we have. You know, and as a marketing person, you know, I have a real difficulty with this sort of magic bullet form of advertising, which is one piece of advertising is going to do the trick. So I tend to think that advertising has a sort of cumulative quality about it. So what we do is, you know, the short answer is yes, we do advertise in Spanish language newspapers. We do advertise on Spanish language radio, La Ley. In fact, Miriam helps us with the translation of that. We have, you know, collateral material like Chris does at her branch that it features both English and Spanish for all our products. We sponsor a student scholarship that is presented each year at the Latino Heritage Festival, and we're a sponsor of that, as is Debbie, as is Village. That's, you know, we're both Des Moines based, and we both are sponsors of the Latino Heritage Festival. We sponsor sports teams in the Denison area, the western Iowa area. We do, we actually have done, we've done punch cards, and we recently did a TV commercial. Now, the interesting thing about this TV commercial is we do a TV commercial here, you know, as a part of our, you know, general brand awareness, you know, for the credit union, and it costs many thousands of dollars. We work with a gentleman who has a company here in town that helps businesses. It's a sort of like Coopera, only they work with the businesses beyond the credit union universe. And he fixed us up with a videographer who was able to produce a TV commercial that cost us $650 to produce. We taped it at our East Des Moines branch. We featured our staff. We had a voiceover. Now the interesting thing is that we only advertised this TV commercial on one program just because of the expense, on Sabado Gigante, and we've had our staff members, people approach them at grocery stores, saying that you know, I've seen you on TV. Now something is happening, and you know, as a good marketer, I need to go out there and do some, you know, a little bit of market research and find out what is I can attribute this growth in the East Des Moines branch to, because we've had, you know, like I said, 200 members join the branch, and we're, like I said, we're on radio, we're on newspaper, we're on television, we do collateral, we do punch cards, we sponsor stuff. But we started with that foundation, and something seems to be working. Like I said, we're not there yet, but we're on that path, that ascending path that Miriam showed earlier in the webinar.
Can I add on to that, because the question was directed besides word of mouth, and may I state that with this specific market, word of mouth is more powerful than your standard membership. When you learn the culture about Hispanics and Latinos, they have a strong sense of family and belonging, and they really do have that interaction where the word of mouth does work. So actually, yeah, we use all those other things, but more than anything, the word of mouth is power here.
And I know in the Des Moines area, this is Debbie from Village, the newspaper, the radio, it is far less expensive than any other, you know, like the Des Moines Register is so expensive. And then you can go to any Latino paper, and it's just minimal cost to do any kind of ad. So that's really nice about this market.
I do want to add something about the power of radio, though, and that is that we had a fiesta de Navidad 2 years ago, and we just advertised it on radio. And for our East Des Moines branch, it was a Christmas festival, and we just advertised on radio, and we were besieged. We had, over 300 folks from the community, exclusively Latino folks, come to our branch, and we were able to, give giveaways and provide food, and there was music and so forth. It was a very, very nice occasion. So, I mean, I sort of do agree with Chris that word of mouth is essential in this community. If you don't have it, or if you have negative word of mouth, you can, you can pick up your ball and bat and go home. But, the other stuff kind of works in tandem. Like I said, it has a sort of cumulative sort of effect. So, I would certainly add word of mouth as a major form of advertising and outreach and relationship building. But some of this stuff kind of surprises me in terms of how well it does work.
Okay, thank you. We also have another follow-up question to remittance marketing.
Can you guys just address specifically how you marketed remittances for the Mother's Day and Christmas campaigns? I think that would help answer the question.
Firstly, because we're involved in this program, WOCCU has been a big means of resource for us. They've hooked us up actually with specifically already pre-done marketing. They ask us, would you want to get in on this? It's like, heck yeah. So they already have pre-designed marketing for those two holidays specifically that we can get in on. Free or cheap, and otherwise, it's the big thing that we had to do to get this word out that we were doing remittances is they can relate to the logos or the representation of the money transfer, because they're very familiar with the money transfer system and the companies that do them. So because we were Vigo, we just had to keep pushing the Vigo logo out there with our marketing.
Okay, next question.
Next question is one participant states they're having trouble trying to figure out how to track the new Hispanic members joining. How are the other credit unions tracking new Hispanic members?
Well, welcome to our world. I was sitting here thinking after I was done, I really didn't go through one thing that I kind of briefly touched upon. We can't really specifically track. We can put a good guesstimate to it. I mean, obviously we don't have demographics as a marker in our system. We can do it by employee groups certainly, but everything was a guess at best. So we did participate in this HON, this Hispanic Opportunity Navigator, with Copa, which is an overwhelming kind of feedback and tool of our penetration and what's working in our credit union and the recommendations, what could be working, and I can't get into everything because it's an overwhelming tool that we were lucky to get in on. But it finally put some numbers to our membership. So because of some of the, I don't know if you want to touch upon that briefly, Miriam, or not, but they were able to put in our penetration. They were able to look at our demographics in our branch areas, and they because our system can't physically do that, so we were just not able to really track specifically penetration. But finally, with the HON, we have a good indication of where our benchmark is and where we'd like to be going forward.
Yeah, and I'll just add a couple comments. Thanks, Chris. I think tracking is definitely a big challenge for credit unions, and credit unions are restricted in terms of what they can track. Ethnicity it is certainly something you cannot track because of potential discrimination, especially in lending. So definitely that is a challenge. You can, however, look at tracking language preference, and I know some credit unions here can speak to how maybe they started to track that. Of course, that can't be tied to lending in any way. Chris mentioned the Hispanic Opportunity Navigator. As a part of that assessment, we provide a membership analysis service. And through this, we're able to determine what members of a credit union are Hispanic based on 3 key things. The first one being an analysis of the name of the individual. So looking at somebody's surname, their last name, kind of the roots of that name. Secondly, it takes into consideration census data, where zip codes, where somebody lives, and it makes a good assumption based on where somebody lives. And then thirdly, it looks at self-reported data. So data or information that a member has provided, for example, when you subscribe to something or when you send in a product registration, oftentimes ethnicity is asked. So you combine those 3 items and you get a pretty good idea of what members are Hispanic, and that's something that it's great for us to be able to provide that. It's great for the credit union to be able to see how many Hispanic members they have, what products they have. Even the more information we get from the credit union, the more we're able to provide back. So if you're interested in learning more about that, feel free to contact me at any time. Thanks.
I have a couple of follow-up comments from the participants. Oh, sorry.
There's some little slots in our member profile on our data processing that we don't use. One of them was employer ID. So we just put a specific number in there if the person is Hispanic, and then I can do a report search for that. And so I am able to track really well what our Hispanic members are doing. So you might look at on your data processor, you're probably not using all those fields that can be used. That's just an idea.
Just to kind of give some of the comments I'm receiving on the questions, to follow up at Debbie's comment. Deborah Matthews said, we assigned the account with a relationship or a code. You can do that if you want to track your accounts, and your core system should be able to set up a code, which sounds like what Debbie just said. And then Martina Iribarren said that they've worked with a company called Axiom. I hope I'm pronouncing that correct. That has been helpful to help them identify and track their Hispanic membership growth.
But that's all good going forward, but we weren't able to see what our current membership is, so that's to be taken into consideration too.
Well, Chris, I decided not to try to figure out who was Hispanic prior to us starting because I wanted to just track what we did when we decided this was the route we were going. So people that were prior, they were, Hispanic, is not included in any of my figures, and the board knows that, and so that's how I decided to handle it.
Sure. Next question, since we're running low on time here. This question is, have any of the credit unions considered working with payout financial institutions in the remittance receiving countries?
And actually, I think, this is Saul Wolf, I'm the manager of the remittances program here. I think I'm probably the best positioned to answer that because, to my knowledge, none of the 3 credit unions here have. But I can say that there are credit unions, a couple kind of spread throughout the U.S. that do partner with credit unions in Latin America, and we have contacts in just about every single Latin American country. Most of those credit unions in most of those countries are paying remittances. So if you're interested in that, feel free to contact me, myself, or Ami, or one of the other participants here.
Next question is, what is the delinquency percentage on your current Hispanic loans, such as the quinceañera loans?
I don't have specific numbers of delinquency for the different markets. I think Mike or somebody, Debbie does though, didn't you, Debbie?
Well, I don't have for like this month, although last month there was a couple of Hispanic loans that showed up, so it would probably be higher today than what it has been in the past. But I did have our charge-off, and that was lower than our charge-off for the loans overall in the credit union. It was a smaller percentage to those loans outstanding. Hispanic, you know, I divided it just by the Hispanic loans, and it was like 0.78%. And we've been doing them for, Enrique says 2 years, but I think it's been longer than that. But I think it'll be 3 years in September. 3 years. That we've been offering loans to ITIN loans. And
I have some follow-up questions to the quinceañera loans. Can any of the credit unions share the guidelines that you use for these loans?
Like I was saying, ours is just a repackaged signature loan. We just kind of market it toward use this type of loan as a quinceañera. You know, we have to use the guidelines for our signature loans.
the only thing we ran in trouble with doing an unsecured loan, whether you call it quinceañera, we call it paso a paso, which is step by step. Some of the individuals did have a credit history under a Social Security number, and we push just take, you know, we really want your ITIN. So we would pull a credit history on the ITIN, and there was nothing there. Our policy states that if someone doesn't have, we do risk-based lending, so if someone doesn't have a score, we place them in the C category. So that was probably the biggest challenge. So what we did in those instances is we had them bring 2 or 3 months of some of their bills to make sure that they were, that they paid on time. That's how we got around lack of credit history. But otherwise, like Chris said, it's just really the same loan. You just do it different. I mean, you just call it something else. And they could get one amount the first time, and then they needed to pay on that for 6 months because this culture likes to pay things off fast, but we wanted them to build a credit history with us, and so we said you had to pay on it for 6 months before you could apply for the next step. And then by that time, they have a credit score now. So.
Do you, this is another question based on that, do you request collateral?
No, ours is no, we do unsecured loans just like we would do for anyone else, just someone that doesn't have a credit score, we go through this step by step. Of course, if they do have collateral, then we don't use that, and we just treat them like somebody that doesn't have a credit score, and we still ask for the bill. Or, you know, their landlord will write us a letter that they pay their rent on time. It's a little more work to gather the information, but I don't know, it's well worth it. But no, we don't. I know a lot of people are doing, you know, we'll loan you the money if you have it in savings to pledge against. No, we don't do that.
As a follow-up, what is the maximum amount for the quinceañera loans?
We have our maximum amount is right now $5,000.
Yeah, that's where our structure is, just like the normal signature loan here.
Yeah, debt-to-income ratio of 60%. Like I said, we just passed this last night, so.
We don't go up that high, but yeah.
We do $600 for the first no credit score loan, and then 1,000 the next time. And based on our signature limits are as high as 10,000, but it's also based on your credit score. So it can be lower than that if your credit, the worst is 2,500 if you're like an EZ score. So
remember, you're not creating a whole new loan. You're just marketing, repackaging it, calling it something different what you already had in existence. So you wouldn't change your structure of your loan. You would just tag on the name Quinceañera or citizenship.
So this question, I think, is regarding the car loans. If a member doesn't have a Social Security number, can they get a driver's license or tags for the car? If not, how do you make them a car loan? And I guess this would, I don't know if an ITIN comes into this either. So Debbie, could you address that question?
yes, a blind person can buy a car. That's, we talked to a car dealer, and that's basically what they said. I mean, think about it. If you have someone in your community that's not allowed to drive, they can still go to a car dealer and purchase a vehicle. Now, as far as getting tags, I'm not quite sure how that works, although it does work. They're able to get tags for that car. And I don't know what they do to do that. Like I said, we try not to get involved in that. But we get the title. We have our lien on it. It works just the same. We decided that when we were going, right off the bat, when we were going to go after this market, is that we would do loans for these individuals without, I'm talking undocumented people. We do loans for them, and we consider that there is a risk that someone will lose their job, that someone will die, that someone will get a divorce. Those are your top three. Couple of bankruptcies, death I guess is not. And then we have one more risk that we have to pay attention to. They might be deported. And one of our charge-offs was someone was deported. But it's, when you loan money, there's no guarantee people are going to pay it back. You have to weigh the risk, and we decided that that risk, that we were willing to take that on.
One other comment on the license issue. The state licensing, it depends on each state. I know a few years ago here in Wisconsin, you do not have to have a Social Security number in order to get a driver's license. Also, I believe Washington State was a big one. I don't know currently what their laws say, but a lot of I was in New York not too long ago, speaking with a number of Hispanic immigrants, and they joked about how they would drive all the way to Washington State to get a driver's license. So just because they're living in Iowa, they may have a driver's license somewhere else, and it just depends on the state.
Yeah, this is a question for Mike and Chris. How large were your marketing teams when you first embarked on this project?
How large is the marketing team?
Yes.
You're talking to her.
Uh-oh.
That's it.
There's 4 of us. When we started this, however, this initiative, there were only 2 of us.
That has been one of my challenges here too, and getting some of the results from that HAN that we were speaking of. That's why we are always constantly tweaking our plan. Is now we're going to redirect our focus, not just with the marketing, VP. Now there's going to be more people in this credit union that will be involved, whether it be a new marketing staff person or whether some people are going to take on some new roles here. Yeah, the whole point of this is one person can't be the point person. It takes a team.
Here's the next question. Do VIGO and RIA agencies receive deposits?
The answer is yes, although some payout locations aren't able to accept deposits. In most countries, most of the banks accept deposits. In some countries, some of the credit unions accept deposits, but they have to be done manually, and then there's other credit unions that can't accept deposits because they're not configured in that way. Another question that frequently comes up is, how much does it cost to send to X country? What I would say is, if you Google remittance prices and World Bank, they have probably the best, most comprehensive resource on pricing. It's not perfect, but if that's an issue, it's a very, I think, user-friendly resource, and it's something that I use frequently. Another question that we've gotten a lot is, can I only provide remittances to members? Not necessarily. Many credit unions, depending on their charter, can offer remittances to non-members within their field of membership. So it's something you need to look at and investigate in terms of your charter.
We chose to do that. That's the only thing at this credit union that will go outside to non-members. Otherwise, it should be a member benefit, but non-credit union members can use our Vigo product.
We have another question here. What does the credit union need to do in order to offer RIA or Vigo remittance services?
The simplest answer is contact Ami or myself, and then we can go through the different steps.
And secondly, understand what market you're about to go into. Understand the culture, understand all the background work. It's one thing to say we're going to offer a new product, but it's another thing to fully understand the culture.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that, Chris. The product itself is not the complicated part. Just kind of another question that frequently comes up and has come up here is, in terms of the word of mouth, whether you have a budget, just marketing outreach in general. Again, I would reiterate what other people have said, is that the most cost-effective marketing strategy is really word of mouth, and you really can't discount that. It's really person-to-person marketing, and in terms of specifically what I've seen credit unions do, the 3 Iowa credit unions here and elsewhere, attending community events, sponsoring community groups, all the things that the credit unions here have mentioned. I just wanted to highlight that point.
We have another question here. Is there any difference in price for the members between Vigo and RIA?
That's a complicated question, because the pricing, and when I mean pricing, I'm always referring to the fee plus the exchange rate differential, because that's important. The pricing is largely determined by the market, the remittance firm, a number of different factors. So market and remittance firm are the 2 big ones. RIA and Vigo both have very, very similar pricing for most all countries. They're not actually always able to directly control the exchange rate. You can imagine if you're sending money to Kenya, the Kenya shilling is not something that RIA and Via is trading currencies in a lot. So they're relying on their correspondence. So and those things change daily. But generally speaking, RIA and Via and Vigo have very similar pricing in most major remittance corridors, and in terms of offering different pricing to members versus non-members, credit unions do have flexibility in terms of what to charge to some degree. Another frequent set of questions just relates to BSA and OFAC compliance. I would venture to bet that RIA and Via and Vigo both have larger compliance staff and probably more sophisticated compliance tools than 99% of all U.S. credit unions. And that's because they're actually primarily working with non-financial institutions, and from a regulation standpoint, they're responsible for complying with BSA and OFAC and the other requirements. So credit unions are required to do their own BSA, OFAC compliance, customer identification, etc. But all that stuff is also being done by the remittance firm.
Can I add to that, Saul? This is Michael speaking. You know, during the early part of our Latino initiative, you know, when we were trying to change the CIP, and certainly when we were trying to, you know, introduce ITIN lending to our credit union, if you read the Bank Secrecy Act very closely, there's some language in there that's pretty restrictive. And if I'm not mistaken, I seem to recall a phrase, or at least this came up, that if a credit union member suspects that someone is an undocumented worker, they are obligated to call law enforcement and so forth. So it's, you know, it sort of has shades of, you know, the sort of current, you know, the new Arizona law. You know, you have to decide as a credit union how strictly you're going to read the Bank Secrecy Act and then apply it to your, you know, your development of certain products and services. You know, that was part of our issue. People were saying, you know, we're rigidly interpreting this act as something, you know, that was going to prevent us from entering into this market, you know, in a meaningful way. But we were able to kind of back away from some of that language. And that's why I talked about earlier, you have to do some major lobbying, you know, early on.
And I'll add a couple of comments to that. This is Miriam from Coopera. What Michael's speaking to it relates to actually more or less ITIN lending and some complications that can arise in terms of number discrepancies when you have somebody who's opened an account with an ITIN, who's gotten a loan with an ITIN, and then later on there's issues in terms of a social security number popping up. So there's certain compliance factors that play into that as a part of BSA and as a part of the identity theft red flag rules that credit unions must comply with. So, you know, it's definitely important to take a look at all of that with your legal counsel and look at your specific policies and examine that very closely before you get into something like ITIN lending.
All right, our last question. Saul, do you feel that RIA might be any more successful than Vigo in terms of attracting remittances to Mexico?
I would say that both brands are fairly well known depending on what kind part of the country you are. Particularly on the West Coast and East Coast, both brands are pretty strong. I think Vigo is probably a little bit better known in Texas, for example. Nevertheless, I think there's a lot of factors that go into that. One is kind of doing the other things that all the credit unions on the call have mentioned. That I think is a big part. In terms of why we picked RIA and VIA, I can say that we definitely feel very confident in their staff, and I think because they're a little bit smaller organization, we have a really good correspondence, and we've worked with them in a number of other countries to say that. So yeah, I am optimistic. I think that RIA and VIA does offer a good another solution, but again, Vigo has a number of really quality people too. So I wouldn't want to say that. You know, it just depends on where you are and you know what type of relationship you have with your Vigo or RIA and VIA you know, contacts.
Okay, everyone, this closes our webinar that scheduled to last from 2 to 4. We want to thank all of our presenters. today, and we also want to thank you for attending our webinar. Again, like I said, I will be sending out contact information, copies of the PowerPoints, and recording of the webinar if you're interested, and so I will have your contact information for those that attended the webinar. So again, thank you everyone, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you.